In a campaign without much policy, it's inevitable that the focus is on the character and the competence of the two contenders to be Prime Minister. Competence in particular. After all, whoever wins on the weekend will be in charge of our $2 trillion economy in GDP terms. And if he ever had to, would have the power to deploy Australian troops to protect this country. So what people do with their vote matters. It matters now and it matters into the future because, as Paul Keating said, you change the government, you change the country. When Anthony Albanese and his advisors decided to run the smallest of small target strategies, they probably figured that would put the heat on the Prime Minister's character to justify their attacks on the so-called liar from the Shire who didn't hold a hose. But that's not how it's worked out. At least as big an issue as the PM's supposed flaws, and fuelled, of course, by gaffe after gaffe from the Labor leader, has been whether Mr Albanese is up to the job. Sure, Scott Morrison isn't especially popular and should never have embraced leftist objectives like net zero, but we know he can do the job because he's done it for the past 4 years. We don't know whether Albo can do the job because he's hardly carved out a distinctive political persona for himself even after 26 years in the Parliament. He's never had an economic or security portfolio, and he has virtually no policies, at least he'll tell us this side of an election about, beyond spending more at a time when our economy is under pressure. But whether or not knowing the unemployment rate is down to 3.9% today, the lowest in decades, whether or not that's a big deal, or not knowing about his own border protection policies, or today, not knowing that the borders have actually been open pretty much since February, all of that's to be seen, but it's been blunder after obvious blunder.
Surely give the government a boost for their argument about how they run the economy. It's not.
Our borders are closed, Lisa. Our borders are closed. People are doing it tough.
Now, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to be an effective political leader. Indeed, as Kevin Rudd and Malcolm Turnbull have amply shown, thinking you're the smartest person in the room is a recipe for failure. But if you want to succeed, you do have to be on top of the issues. Maybe it's campaign nerves, as Peter Dutton suggested today. Maybe it's the after effect of COVID, or maybe, and perhaps most likely, he really does lack what it takes. Anthony Albanese has done everything possible to deter voters from backing Labor. The fact that the alternative Prime Minister has constantly tried to avoid scrutiny is a big warning sign. Today, he even tried to banish the media pack from travelling with him to Brisbane, wanting to leave them behind in Canberra, where his senior shadow ministers were finally releasing Labor's costings. Now, I've never seen a move like this before. I've been around campaigns for over 20 years. So he shuts down press conferences when questions get too tough. He knocks off events now by lunchtime. That's Turnbull-esque. And now he's even trying to ban the Canberra press pack from travelling with him because they're about the only ones putting him under any pressure. Understandably, they refused to cop it. There was a revolt, Labor backed down, even trying to spin it as Albanese being considerate.
By trying to take the travelling media pack away from you for the night and the afternoon.
I would miss you dearly, and I'll miss you dearly when this campaign is over. I'm happy for you to come with me wherever you want.
Well, I just want you to be honest with us too.
I am happy for the travelling party to go wherever you want to go. The offer was made if you want to go to the costings because people felt like you would want to go to the costings announcement with Jim and Katie.
Now, the media on that travelling team have a very different view than that spin you just saw then. On top of everything else, it's terrible optics. This is a bloke under pressure wanting to be able to campaign without scrutiny for the last 2 days before the election. This sort of carry on today just reinforces to the campaigner and me and many others that Labor hardheads they believe their own leader is their biggest risk to victory. With the polls tightening and with this election going down to the wire, any party leader worthy of the nation's top job should be pushing to do more, not less. That's why today's papers announced that Albanese would be embarking on a 5-state blitz, they say, 20 marginal seats in the final 48 hours of this campaign. Now, seriously, this is just spin. This is a mop-up job to dispel the impression of indolence as well as ineptitude that's built up around the Labor leader as he's bumbled and fumbled and stumbled his way through this 6-week campaign. I bet if they really were going to do this blitz, dumping the media pack back in Canberra today was all part of the plan. That way it would then be covered by just local junior TV crews, and he'd get none of the hard questions he's been copying that have exposed how weak and unprepared he really is. I know our mostly 5 or 6 week campaigns aren't like America's. It's got a year-long primary season before the campaign proper, which is almost as exhaustive in terms of scrutiny that any leader's subjected to around the world. But that's precisely why leaders here have to be fully available for scrutiny in our 6-week campaign. Given the Labor machine's latest attempt to hide their candidate begs this obvious question. If they don't trust Anthony Albanese to perform, why the hell should we?